If you could kill one person to save 100, would you do it? This is the core of the trolley problem, a thought experiment that forces us to weigh the value of a single life against the survival of a crowd. While we treat this as a modern classroom exercise, this dilemma dominated the mind of a young man in the slums of 1860s St. Petersburg. Rodion Raskolnikov is 23 years old. He is a law school dropout who can no longer afford tuition or regular meals. He spends his days hiding from his landlady in a cramped, yellowing garret that barely allows him to stand upright. Raskolnikov views this scale as a call to action. He believes that by sacrificing one life, he can gain the resources to save hundreds of others. To test this arithmetic, he is actively preparing to kill a woman with an axe. We have to ask, is he a desperate madman, or is he simply applying the rational logic of his era to its consistent, final conclusion? In the 1860s, Russia was in a state of shock. The abolition of serfdom had freed the peasants, but poverty remained widespread. Among the young intellectuals, this sparked a deep disillusionment with God and traditional morality. A new generation of thinkers arose. They believed that only science and reason could be trusted to build a functional society. They turned to utilitarianism, a philosophy imported from the West. Utilitarianism is the ethical theory that the best action is the one that provides the greatest happiness for the greatest number of people. This chart visualizes the logic. If extinguishing a single data point allows the rest of the system to flourish, then the math dictates that you should remove it. In this intellectual air, the old language of right and wrong was translated into the cold language of social arithmetic. Raskolnikov's article on crime sorts humanity into two categories. Most are ordinary men whose purpose is obeying laws and maintaining stability, but extraordinary men, like Napoleon, have the right to destroy old laws and step over blood to build a new world. Raskolnikov finds his target in Alyona Ivanovna, an elderly pawnbroker. She charges high interest to the poor and sells their last possessions when they miss a payment. He stops viewing her as a human being. Instead, he defines her as a louse, a harmful parasite that drains the life of the community. The formula is simple: one death in exchange for 100 lives. By removing the parasite and redistributing her wealth to the poor, Raskolnikov believes he is performing a service to society. Through this lens, murder becomes a calculated moral obligation for the man who believes he is extraordinary. But we have to question if Raskolnikov ever truly cared about the welfare of humanity. Beneath his grand philosophy, he is a starving law student who has been cast out of society. He is ignored, desperate, and trapped in a room that feels like a tomb. His real motive wasn't social reform. He needed to prove something about himself. He needed to know if he was a Napoleon with the right to kill, or just another trembling creature. The utilitarian math was a mask for his own pride and insecurity. He used the logic of the greater good to hide a deeply fragile ego. The danger of Raskolnikov's logic is that it turns murder into a technicality. Once a human being is redefined as a louse or a parasite, killing them becomes an act as social hygiene. This logic scaled up in the 20th century. By defining entire groups as enemies of the class or obstacles to history, regimes justified the deaths of millions. The individual's humanity was erased by the same arithmetic Raskolnikov used in his attic. Dostoevsky saw this mechanism forming in 1866. He recognized how a purely rational world could eventually treat mass murder as a necessity for progress. Today, we still debate the trolley problem and the trade-offs required for the greater good. We are still using the same tools Raskolnikov picked up in St. Petersburg. Dostoevsky's warning is that these equations always fail. They collapse because they cannot quantify human pride, nor the psychological cost of treating a life like a number.